but now turning to the future, since Kemp, I have three names I can think of, but I want to hear you first. Who in today's game kind of reminds you of Kemp?
Oh man. Well, I'm not a big fan of big guys, post up big
Mhm.
guys, because it's such a low efficient game.
Mhm.
So it's going to be a guy that can score points out facing the basket out front. You're gonna have to help me. Throw some names at me, and I'll say
Okay.
yes or no.
So the first one, he doesn't play anymore, but in his prime, I think offensively, defensively, Kemp was a much better defender. But Amari Stoudemire offensively reminded me a lot of Kemp.
That's a good one.
Yes.
Not, not as big as
Mhm.
Shawn, but was very effective outside and inside. It was a hell of a runner.
He had
And
the
the
vacuum hands too.
guy named Steve Nash was pretty good with him too.
Yes, Steve Nash. He's also just a sidebar. He's actually Steve Nash is also part of the series I'm working on. He was the first part of the series. This is a 10-part series, 10 different players. But I digress on that. So the second one I had, um, Ivan actually gave me this idea, and I feel like Kemp, not as good of a passer, but I mean Giannis is pretty similar to Shawn Kemp. What did you say?
When I first saw Giannis, he reminded me athletically
Mhm.
and explosiveness and length. Um, but he weighed 195 pounds, so that was Shawn weighed 260. But now Giannis definitely. Um, and Shawn struggled making his jumper early in his career, kind of like Giannis did.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I like that comparison because Giannis went on to go to the NBA Finals and win one, and Shawn got there once. We should have gotten there at least one other time if we didn't choke away some opportunities. Um, yeah, I like that one better than him.
Yeah.
Today's Giannis, not well. I mean, Giannis when he was younger was explosive and skinny, but not powerful.
Mhm.
Now he's powerful, and he's probably my favorite player right now in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I called Giannis when I wrote an article a couple months ago, excuse me, on Giannis. I called him the ultimate scavenger of like the low hanging fruit. So like great offensive rebounder, he could finish lobs, he could rim run, fast break. He was incredible. And then I started watching Kemp, and I'm like, whoa, this is like everything Kemp does. Like this is awesome, and he was doing it, in the '90s. So you can only imagine. Again, like I said, the passing. Giannis is a better passer than Kemp was, but I'm sure that would because that wasn't really prioritized back then for a guy like
Yeah,
Kemp to be
yeah.
a good
In
passer like that.
today's game, you would probably make Shawn pass the ball a little bit more.
Hmm.
You'd
Make
probably
him
give him more
facilitate more.
touches as a playmaker.
Yeah, I agree. He probably run the pick and roll, honestly, a couple times.
Yeah, I mean, we experimented with
Hmm.
Shawn with the ball and Gary setting the pick and roll for Shawn. We didn't run it a lot, but every once in a while we ran it.
Hmm. Now, so as I said, like everyone loves those '90s Sonics teams. You've coached a lot of really great teams in your career, but what was it about coaching those Sonics teams in that era that made that experience a little bit different for you?
Well, when I went to Seattle, I mean, I was just it was a it fit my mentality of where
Hmm.
I wanted to go, being more aggressive defensively, kind of playing Carolina basketball, and then having athletes. Uh, I'm not saying I was the first guy to kind of recognize the game was going athletic, but I really believe I was really ahead of the curve, knowing that
I agree.
the game was going athletes, going faster, and slow down might win you games, but it's not going to win. It's not going to expand your talent level to winning a championship. And Bob Woodson in Seattle was a guy that he and I were together on more and more athletes and speed and playing fast. And we made those quiet trades. We traded Benoit Benjamin for Sam Perkins, and we traded Derek McKee for Deadlift Shrimp. And the one that got us over the hump was when we traded Kendall Gill for Hersey Hawkins.
Mm-hmm.
Kendall Gill is the better athlete. Hersey Hawkins was a quietly really good defender.
Mm-hmm.
And Hawk was our guy that could save Gary and Nate for the fourth quarter. You know, we could put Hawk on all the good scores. He'd work his tail off. And then if we needed the flip-flop, we could put Gary or Nate on that guy at the end of the game. And then always having different faces to cover people works, I think, really well.
Yes, I agree.
And then, you know, the other thing that was evolving in the late 90s and early 2000s is the three-point shot. And we didn't shoot a lot of threes, but our team was a good three-point shooting team. We probably should have shot more. The analytics now would probably say we should have shot more threes.
Yeah. Even I talked to Coach D'Antoni for the Nash portion of this series, and he's like, yeah, man. And they shot a lot of threes. You know that. He's like, I wish I shot more. I wish I would have just kept, I wish Nash would have taken 10 threes a game. And it's just crazy. Like, because how would you know at that time, you know, what was going to happen?
The guy that should shot more is Stockton.
Mm-hmm.
Stockton
I agree.
Stockton was a hell of a shooter, and he never shot it unless he had to.
Mm-hmm. Well, because I feel like it's probably the way he was coached back then, just because point guards, you're taught, you know, you got to set everybody else up and you can't really look for your own until like it's absolutely necessary.
I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think our league has evolved into a shooting point guard league more than I personally like more point guard mentality. But you know, we're also finding more point guard mentality in the point forward, and now even like Jokic's your point center.
Yeah, I agree. I think you can find that. I think you're right. You do need like a stabilizing force on every good offense, somebody who knows like how to feed this person, how to feed that person. But you're right. It doesn't necessarily have to be the point guy who plays the point guard position, just like your playmaker guy. It can be anybody. So I definitely agree with you there. Now, Coach, I want to ask, you know, the two series that probably get talked about the most in that Sonics run, the, for better or worse, the 94 Nuggets series, and then you talked about the 96 Bulls series. You know, unfortunately, both times it didn't end up your way. Which series do you wish you had back more? Like you think about it, you're like, okay, I wish I could have done this different, that different. We would have won.
Is the 94 series to Denver?
Yes.
We were too young in 94, so I want to take 96 back.
Mm-hmm.
We were good enough to win it then. We were mature enough to win it then. If we had Nate McMillan, I think it's a 7-game series. Nate played, I think someone told me once that Nate played 10 quarters in the Chicago series and we won 9 of them.
Mm-hmm.
I have never checked that, but it sounds like we were pretty damn good in those 10 quarters. You know, he played in game 4 and 5, and he played a little bit in game 6. And we won both 4 and 5 and played probably one of the ugliest ending games in an NBA series in game 6. Couldn't score. Neither team could score. It was like
sticks and stones.
Yeah, it was a wrestling match.
Yeah, no, and I mean, like I said it before, like, you know, Nate McMillan, one of the most underrated players of that era. Just, I don't know how big you are on like the one number metrics, but in 1994, so that, you know, that year Jordan's not there at all, Shawn Kemp finishes 3rd in box plus minus. Number 1 is David Robinson. Can you guess who number 2 is in the league? This is in the league. Who's the second highest box plus minus?
In 94?
Yeah.
By the king.
It's Nate McMillan, actually. So that just tells you
I
how good of a basketball player he is.
I always knew Nate McMillan was a hell of a plus minus guy.
Yeah.
For many years, even before I got to Seattle, Nate was a hell of a plus minus guy. I was in the plus minus probably before it was cool to be in the plus minus.
Who's that legendary coach for the 76ers? He used to keep track of like the plus minus for his team in like the 80s. Do you remember who I'm talking about?
Coacher was the PR director, Pollock, Harvey Pollock.
Yes, Harvey Pollock. Yes.
He wasn't. I think he was a PR director that was a
Okay.
big plus minus guy.
Oh, I see. That's so cool. I'm glad you were on that bandwagon because I love plus minus. I think it's
Yeah.
awesome, especially the more adjusted stuff we have today.